and you go after, look for it. Sounds frustrating.
No, what?
Oh,
No,
okay. For example, it's
no, I was just looking.
look at the
I don't know where to put it. I'm just leaving it there for now.
What are you seeing?
Yeah, let me know if you want to move it.
Or we can do it here.
I'll stand somewhere here.
Should we do it here?
Yeah, if someone's willing to man it.
I can.
Samuel, I asked Samuel,
Okay.
so if he's able to.
Okay. He'll be here.
Should be. If you want to set it. And I'll be along these lines.
Slideshow, does that sound?
No.
Okay.
No, so the whole point is the talking. Huh?
I don't know if it's like too much screen.
Should be fine.
Do you want it at an angle instead?
No, it should be fine. I think it's more just convenience. Samuel put his backpack there. Adange. Adange. That's not the first commandment, but that's a commandment. We'll get to it. That one will be next month. We'll talk about boundaries next month. Children. Yeah. The attention span is a little shorter. No, children. You have to do one commandment. You know, so. Just listen. Much more straightforward.
So he's still falling.
Yeah.
So he's going third round.
Is that okay, Sam? In that spot?
Oh, Sanders. Yeah.
It's no. What do you think looks better? What do you think looks?
Maybe we can get the.
We don't have to, because I don't know if it's going to come out too well. Let me check batteries. Sure, batteries are okay, and then we'll get started. The iPad will not reach. Should be fine. No, should be fine. No, I need the computer for the sermon, so that one's more important. So, but the iPad I don't need. Stream's good so far? You can hear? I have my mic in.
Anyways, vi genom det.
Guns fast.
Out of courtesy. Out of courtesy.
We'll wait a few more minutes and then we'll get started. He's like, this looks like Sunday school, but this is different. This feels different. Yes, we'll be back. Just play. They're staying until after service, so.
During service too?
Yeah.
For 2 hours, not just for the workshop?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. So it's even longer. That's what I was telling some parents. It's like, just come to have 2.5 hours of childless bliss. Call it what you may. Okay.
Jonathan.
Hiç? No, kotwadzę. Kotwadzę. Amen pan kotwadzę, yeah. On sure be galan. Yeah. They're fine, One day we'll get enough money to have cameras installed. You can check yourself. Right now you just gotta have faith. Test of faith. Hey? It's fine. Garnet. You're not, nobody's going, it'll be fine. They'll be okay. Have faith. Trust the childcare. They're wandering the streets of Pasadena.
They just, put them to sleep quietly.
Yeah, we'll talk about boundaries next month. Okay, so let's do parenting. So I've been wanting to do this for a while because this has been on my mind as something relevant, especially for getting just recorded. I mean, I just want to get it into the existence that we have some idea of what parenting looks like and what is ultimately the best pieces of advice or most commonly discussed advice or interventions that are talked about, especially from a therapeutic side, because that's what I do primarily. You all know me, so I'm not going to go over this too long, but I am obviously working at a site that focuses on children. That's what I do. So it's my therapy. Majority of my kids are under the age of 14. That I support, and I work with the parents, and it is constantly coming up with new techniques for each one, but there's a lot of overlap, and that's what I really enjoy, and that's what I want to provide. If you know me from my sermons, what I try to do is to try to simplify things so you have access to it. In my mind, my degrees are so that I can give you access to information that you previously would not have had access to. So that's what I'm trying to do. I want to get the parenting pieces out there. Obviously, Garnet and I, we were raising our own kids, so we have our own experience of parenting, but there's a lot of things that happen in the therapy room with parents, with the kids, and outside that I've also interacted in that's helpful. So I want to be able to share that more than just personal experience, because a lot of you are parents. You have that experience already. Sometimes grandparents are taking care of their kids as well. You're going to have kids eventually, so things are going to happen soon. So it's relevant information across the board, and that's what makes it so useful. And if you know the background behind it, the beauty of it, it's all relevant psychoanalysis that's been talked about and discussed and been over and over again utilized in the therapy room that is now being implemented, generalized for kids and for parents interacting with kids. We're not turning your kids into lab rats, but there's a lot we can learn from rats. So let's pay attention to what it is and what the discussions are, because there's some good information. So before we begin, I want to really emphasize the idea that I am not your therapist. I am not going to be providing therapy, and this is more for my protection, my ethical standard of what I want to do, because I don't want you to think you walk out of here that I've given you personal advice from a therapist. I am a doctor in this field. That is clinical psychology. That is what I try to do. But because therapy works on a one-to-one basis, and there's a lot of intricacy behind how that works, I am not your therapist, so I'm not going to be providing you with personal therapeutic understanding. You may ask a question, and that's where limits of confidentiality become relevant. In the therapy room, if you tell me something, that's staying with me forever. I'm not going to share it. There's limitations to that, obviously. But the limitations here is that you can ask a question. We have people around. There may be people watching online. So there could be lots of different ways that could be broken. So I want to be very clear about that from up front. So I'm not providing therapeutic advice. The other idea is that my role is that of an expert in terms of researching and practicing in the field. When Dr. Alec spoke a month ago with blood pressure, with the heart, and he said that he had that one little phrase that he talked about at the beginning, that he is the final answer for a lot of those things. Mental health is a little different than medical health, where you don't have a final answer necessarily. There's lots of final answers. There's lots of correct answers, unfortunately, which is what one of my frustrations is with the licensure process of me taking a certain test that I can't pass, where there is lots of correct answers that could be given relevant to your experience and your child and to the whole entire ecosystem that you have set up. So lots of ideas, which is why I want to be very clear, I'm just an expert providing that information in a generic sense. And ultimately, the way I'm doing it is I'm combing through the data through my experience as a practitioner, but then also as a researcher to see what people are using, how people are talking about it, and how they're being able to implement what's being talked about. Good? Fair? Okay, so I want to be very clear about that. What we're talking about is the Ten Commandments for pregnant. I'm going to change I don't like the title. So I'm going to change the title eventually, but we're talking about and the way I provided this understanding is that we have a list of some of the most commonly used ideas behind parenting that have come up. In my practice, I've been there for a year and a little more than a year and a half, and I've been practicing with lots of different families, and then the research that has been following, where I'm getting information from my supervisors. My supervisors have spent a collective of close to 30 years in this practice combined, and then they've been trained by a therapist who, by himself, has over 4 decades of experience working with children. So lots of experience that's coming in and being flooded in different ways that we're trying to work through. Every type of example I give you is going to be a spectrum. I'm going to provide you what looks like when you do it too much. I'm going to provide you an understanding what you do too little, because that's useful. If you can place yourself on one of those spectrums, you'll have a better understanding of, okay, how do I adjust? Am I doing it too much? Am I doing too little? Do I need to do less? Do I need to do more? I'm going to give you examples, ideally, of what it looks like. A lot of them come from my experiences. I'm going to use my kids for some of those experiences, so hopefully those will be helpful. There's a saying out there that a foolish man learns from nobody. Let me get the proverb correctly. A foolish man learns from nobody's experiences. An ordinary man learns from his own experiences. A wise man learns from the experiences of others. So why don't we use that advantage to our advantage? Let me give you some examples of other people so you can implement it into your understanding of what you're supposed to do. Ultimately, what steps can you take? You know me from my sermons. I can't end a sermon without giving you another step to take. You should be leaving this room with something that you can adjust or tweak that you can focus on. I'm saying 10 Commandments, but what oftentimes ends up happening, a parent will focus on just one aspect for months. So don't feel like, oh, these are lots of pieces of advice, I'm going to do all this. You can't. You shouldn't. Like, it is overwhelming for yourself. It's overwhelming for your kids. Do not do that. Pick one, see if it fits. We're going to go through half of them right now. We're going to go through the other half later, so we have a better understanding of how exactly we're going to be kind of taking that next step. But the next step is really important. If you just learn things and don't know how to implement it, I feel like a workshop is pointless. You're not shopping what you're supposed to do. So ideally, we're walking out of here with some steps that you can take and something you can do differently. Any questions before we get started? Just a quick intro understanding of what we're talking about. Okay, so first commandment. The first thing to keep in mind, I tried my best to organize these in a way that you can generalize it as much as possible, and then I've paired them so that they make sense with each other, and then we get more and more specific. So the first one that I really want to focus on is kids being unique. The fancy word for that is idiosyncratic. They have a specific way that they function, and it's important as parents to be able to find that and to recognize that and to utilize that in a way that makes that relationship functional. Anyone know how much of our DNA we share with a chimpanzee? 99%. Very close. 98.8. You're right. You rounded up. You're fine. Yeah. 98.8%. There's a 1.2% difference in our genetic code with a monkey. Okay. How much of our genetic code do we share with a banana? It's not that high. It's not that high. It's not the 1.2. It's much more than that. 60%. We have 60%. We're 2/3 banana. Yeah. Now think about that for a second. I mean, just just that much of similarity on organic material. If you think about it, what a banana does is very similar to what humans do, right? We're aerobic, we take in oxygen, we use that, we spit out carbon dioxide. Bananas do the same thing. Like that's what they pretty much do to be able to grow and function so that then we can end up eating them. But that much similarity, and yet two children, right? If you have two kids of your own, twins, two children will share very little idiosyncratic qualities with each other. They'll have these unique qualities that the other one doesn't. And you as the parent almost has the responsibility, the role of trying to figure out, okay, what in the world do I do with this child as opposed to this other child? Best example I give is whenever I talk about timeouts with Yuffie and Effina. Yuffie, when I introduced the punishment of timeout, she was devastated. I mean, she would weep, wail. It would be the end of life itself for her to go on time. My timeouts are about 2 minutes, just so you know. About 2 minutes by herself, and she would be devastated by this. Effina, when I told her it's timeout, she's like, yeah? And off she goes. She loves it. She wants to run off to the... So you can't, there's no cookie cutter with your kids. There are some things that will match. There'll be if we have a third, maybe timeouts will work for function. Whatever. There could be certain things that work, but for the most part, there's uniqueness to each child, and it's our job as a parent to find it and to be able to utilize it the best way possible. So how are we talking about this when we're discussing it? Well, B.F. Skinner, he's a prominent U.S. psychologist from the early 1900s. He had the famous quote of saying, "Give me any child and I'll shape them into anything you want." And he's a behavioral psychologist because there are basic rudimentary educational systems that every child will listen to. And his idea, of course, was a lot with reward and punishment and how that works. And you can make a child do anything. His whole idea was we can train them to be soldiers. We can train them to be researchers. You can train them to be whatever this idea that you want to do. You can train your child just like I can train a rat. I can train a child. That's what his argument was. And for the most part, it's accurate. But there are uniquenesses that we have to find. And ultimately, what that comes down to, a few decades later, David Premack, another U.S. psychologist, he comes up with the idea that individuals will have something that they really enjoy, and they'll have things that they don't enjoy. So what our job becomes as parents is realizing, okay, what is it that you really like and you really want to happen, and so that you can get them to do what they don't want to do. Ultimately, that's what ends up being most parenting, right? Trying to get your child to do something they don't want to do. Right? You're trying to get them, you're trying to teach them, you're trying to make it important, all these things. Yuffie and Effina know that every Saturday is cleanup day. Okay? Saturday is cleanup day. Whatever mess you make, you can make a mess, and I make it very clear, Saturday morning, we're cleaning. So the more of a mess it is during the week, more of cleaning we have to do on Saturday. The days that we wake up on Saturday, and Yuffie's always the first one that'll ask me, she's like, is it cleanup day today? And I'm like, yeah, it's cleanup day. The days that we got nothing going on, cleanup day takes all day. It's long. If sometimes it happens where there's not really much incentive for her to clean up, other than Baba yelling at her over and over again that it's time to clean up, pick up, or me throwing stuff into the room and saying, okay, do the same thing. There's not much going on. But the days that we have a birthday party, and I tell them, you clean up, we go to the birthday party. Now, we're probably going to the birthday party regardless. But they don't know that, right? The idea that we're presenting is that you clean up, you get the birthday party. You get to do this thing. You do this thing you don't want to do, you get this thing that you want to do. Because the mentality works. And Premack did a lot of work with giving kids something they wanted, not wanted, switching those two things. And he noticed that kids will end up doing things they don't want to do because they know that at the end of the tunnel, there's something going on that they really like. Now, what happens if you do this too much? I mean, this is always the most common question. I don't want to do this a lot. I really want to be cautious with what I teach my kids and what I make them do. So if we use this too much, then what you end up doing is you start weakening a lot of those reward systems. We'll talk about rewards and punishments later. So we got to be cautious about how much we overwhelm our kids with those positives. everything having a string attached can be overwhelming. You have to think of it from the kid's side as well. It's going to be exhausting to think of everything being if I do this, I get this. If I do this, I get this. If I get it, and so being able to limit the use makes it a lot more functional. Well, the other side can be a lot more problematic. If you just ignore this, one of the worst things you can tell your child is, why can't you be more like brother, sister, cousin? What that does, it's so self-defeating of the child, where now they're realizing that I'm not good enough. I've just come out of the womb. I mean, they won't use these words. I've come out of the womb and I'm not good enough for my parents in some capacity. You probably mean no harm or negativity with that kind of idea. And we'll get into that in the next slide of what that does to a kid. But what that does is it deflates the self-worth. And then they start to get into their heads too often, and we'll talk about the shame cycle that shows up in the next slide. So there's a lot of caution we need to have with how we do that. Here's a simple rule to think about. This is one of the most basic things to think about to practice this. Think about the first then. It's the first then. First do this, then you'll get that. Very simple. It's very useful when the thens are controlled. Right? If your then for a kid is screen time, we'll talk about screen time next month. Very common conversation to have. So if your then is screen time, and they wake up in the morning and just get screen time anyways, if you tell your kid, first do this and then you'll get screen time, they're like, I already got screen time. Like, it's not much of an incentive for me. It loses it. So you got to be really consistent with making sure whatever the then is, they don't have access to it in other ways, because it needs to be tied to this first. Do this, and then you'll get a little bit of that, whatever it could be, however it could be used. The behavior you want to, and the closer you match the behavior, it almost doesn't even matter. Like, it doesn't even make a difference. Clean up the room and you'll be able to watch TV. Two are not really related. What does a clean room have to do with TV? I can watch a TV in a dirty room. But so the two don't need to match. Clean up the house, we go to the birthday party. We're not even home. What difference does it make if the house is... So it doesn't even matter if they match, but if the kid wants it, if it's desirable, that connection will naturally be made. Something that ends up happening with this, they overgeneralize the reward, where they realize that, wait a second, when I clean my room, I got this going on. And some kids will then go and clean their living room and expect something in return. We'll talk about rewards, and we'll talk about why it's okay to reward them at that point. It's fine. It teaches them that, yeah, you did something great, and I want to reward you for that. We'll talk about rewards later. But it's important to be able to, we'll talk about that today. That's really important. So really important to be able to do it. So let's practice this real quick. How do you practice this? What do you do in this situation? Pair up real quick, if you can. I know some of you are seeing individually, but if you can, pair up and just do your best to, I'm sorry, that's not pairing up. Do this by yourself. Think about, next one is pairing up. Think about something unique of yourself. Okay, just take a moment right now. Think about something unique that you either do or you are. Okay, something unique. You feel it's different. It doesn't have to be. You don't have to prove to me like, yeah, nobody else does. Just something unique you do or are that you feel is idiosyncratic to you. Just think about it for a few moments. What's unique about yourself? Okay, you don't have to say it out loud. Then, think about this. How many people know that about you? Okay, think about how many people immediately know that, oh yeah, when I see Jonathan, this is a unique thing I think about. Like, they know for a fact this is the unique thing. Okay? Then think about, how are they supposed to find out? Okay, how are they supposed to get that information? Okay? Now put yourself in your child's shoes. If your child has this something that is uniquely to them, they may not even know it yet. They may not even be able to... Your child is going through this self-discovery of who they are, and there's different milestones that they go through for 20, 25 years of what that looks like, of self-identity, building that self-esteem. If you as the parent are able to come in, recognize that uniqueness, and bring it out in a positive way, it makes that much more of a difference. Because you think about it for yourself, it's like, oh man, it's hard for me to share this with people. If your parent already knows it, and then my parent doesn't use it in a negative way against me, that's when that relationship begins to flourish. And that's that main idea that we got to get behind, where we got to remember that our kids are unique and they're going to have these various ways that they do things, and we have to land on that being okay. Make sense? Yeah. Questions or thoughts on this? Good? Okay, with that in mind, here's one of those dangers that we come across to commandment number 2, the shame cycle. And so the shame cycle is ultimately described as what happens to, very internalized, to what happens to you when something triggers this ultimately. Shame cycle is almost always associated with a low self-esteem or a low self-worth. If you hear anything like that, self-esteem, self-worth, they're almost synonymous. What you think of yourself, right? Who do I think I am? How do I think I am? So what happens in the cycle of shame is that you get something happens that you get negative thoughts. Okay, some sort of a negative thought. And then that negative thought will ultimately lead to negative feelings. Okay? In compensating, I feel bad about something, you end up doing something bad. You try to compensate for that feeling, that negative feeling you're having, and since your self-worth is so low, usually whatever you do to compensate is negative. It's not constructive. It doesn't build up anything. But as a kid, what happens when you do something bad? Well, not there yet. You feel bad. You feel bad for doing whatever it is, because what comes after you doing something bad from your parent? Punishment. How dare you do XYZ, right? And then you get back into that idea of negative thought. And that cycle will just continue over and over again, where the problem is not the bad thing you did, even though that's what you're getting punished for. The problem is the cycle that you're stuck in. And as a parent, this becomes overwhelming, because it's hard to pinpoint exactly where you need to insert whatever it is that's going to interrupt this cycle. So shame, the word shame, as Armenians we know this very well, right? Shame is a very important part of the Armenian parenting system. There's nothing wrong with shame, actually. Shame is a very functional, it's a pro-social motivator in a person's learning how to be behaving properly, right? A kid runs into a room and is yelling and screaming and jumping all around. Parent looks at him, does a finger, right? Because we're in the room mourning the loss of our grandmother. That's an inappropriate time to be doing something like that. They need to learn. That's how you learn. That shame hits, my dad is staring at me. The prefrontal, what happens to the brain, that front prefrontal cortex where your decision-making process, it activates and it shuts you down. Usually, you can't make eye contact. You look down. You can't look at who you just offended, who the shame is coming from, right? And you kind of walk out the door with your tail tucked between your legs, right? That's how shame, and shame works for that, because you remember, I don't do that in that moment, right? That works. It's functional. Shame is good. There's effective ways to be able to use it. There's a quote I love by Dr. Markham. In its mild form, the feeling of shame is nature's way of ensuring that young humans learn to live with other humans and follow the rules of the tribe. That's how you learn. Who taught you to poo and peep in a toilet? Did you figure it out on your own? No. I don't think there's anyone in here that came out the womb and was like, toilet. That's where I have to do my business, right? That's not the way. It's something that's taught. You teach your kid, you don't poo in the middle of a room, because that's something that you don't do. There should be some sort of level of shame, because there's a lot of things that we learn. So the idea here is that we're trying to process how we teach our child these basic things, and then at the same time doing it in such a way that it doesn't translate into a lowered self-worth. Because here's the best description of shame that's often used by, I forgot her name, by another psychologist. She describes shame as you realizing there is something fundamentally wrong with me. Right? Guilt is very closely related to shame. It's when you realize you regret an action that you've had. So that's the difference between the two. There's a place and a time for both of them, right? When we do too much shame, we're leaning into that self-worth too much. And for a kid, you have to think about it, a kid that's learning how to live life and developing that self-worth from the beginning, it can't handle that. That little guy or girl is still building their identity, and to be attacked over and over again, it's going to just take the knees out from underneath them. So it becomes a really important practice to be able to keep in mind that we're not attacking you, we're teaching you about this behavior. We're trying to divide those two. And as a parent, it becomes important so that they don't get stuck in the cycle. But just like any cycle, it can be broken. Okay, so we shouldn't be too overwhelmed by the fact that we've done it. If we've done it to our kids, a lot of the kids are young enough that maybe you haven't. But the idea here is that we teach them about the self-worth and kind of teach them how they can be able to function in a better way. Almost every single time when I have a client that comes in, my goal with them is to bolster their self-esteem. Almost every single client that comes in, that's my goal. We talk about that frequently, and the parent every single time is like, yes, our kid needs that. The self-esteem is almost always the number one goal that we work on because it is so difficult. And I mean, you have to think about this. We're just talking in the home. They're going to go to school, and it's going to get battered there because all the friends are saying what they need to do and what they don't need to do. They come with a haircut that's not supposed to be the right haircut for that time and place. They come with the wrong shoes. Their self-esteem is battered frequently at school, and then they come home, the last thing they need is for the parent to pile it on. So what we do is we need to find a way to break that cycle, and there's some ways to do it, and I'll talk about it. But let me talk about the other way. There's a problem when there's an absence of shame. So the danger of this current zeitgeist we can talk about, the way parents are thinking because of how much shame we've experienced in the 80s, right, 90s, which they're the ones that are becoming parents right now. The opposite is now happening where they're like, no shame. We're not going to shame our kids at all. We're going to do whatever they want to do. We will support them and we'll encourage them. And the danger of no shame, you can literally turn your kid into a sociopath. I mean, that's the kind of the mentality that it turns into, where now the kid feels no shame in interacting with anybody. They come in and do whatever they want, and off they go with no repercussions and no consequences. To never learn that, no, you don't do that in that kind of a situation. We need to be cautious and rein that in. So what is that description? I mean, we see it all the time. It's glorified. It's with how rock stars act and with celebrities. You know, the more money you have, the more stuff you do. Politicians, all over the place, we have examples of people doing what seems like shameless acts. And there's no repercussions for it, and it's glorified. So the danger of having no shame is now we're teaching kids that this kind of behavior is okay. And what we've seen, there's a term called successful psychopaths. These people that are so comfortable doing something shameless, and they've become good at it. I mean, this cutthroat mentality, I just need to get ahead at the expense of everyone around me. I trample people. Well, ends justify the means. I mean, I don't know what to say. They should have been stronger. They should have been smarter. And the way you justify it is the same function of not being able to recognize that I've just pulverize somebody and I should feel bad for it. You know, you run someone on the street, it's their fault. It's not my fault. So that becomes a real thing that can be taught, but it can be reversed. So here's a few ways to be able to reverse it. This one I wanted to land on a little bit longer. Empathy. Empathy is the most common way, of course. Empathy is ultimately the biggest breaker of the shame cycle. And what does empathy look with a parent? There's going to be times your kid does something and you want to punish them. 100%. Punish them. That's what you have to do because they did something wrong. But when you empathize with them, you get into the moment that they're in. Okay? You get into the moment that they're in, you come alongside of them. You're not getting rid of the punishment. You're not getting rid of any of the parenting, the discipline. But what your kid is experiencing is some sort of self-worth damage that you want to sit with them, put your arm around, hug them, put them on your lap, give them a kiss, hold on to them. The discipline will still come. Just happened actually a couple weeks ago. Yuffie did something to another kid, and the kid started to cry. The kid was hurt. The kid was hurt because of what Yuffie did. So I went to her, and I said, Yuffie, you hurt somebody, because she kept on playing. Yuffie, you hurt someone. You got to stop the play, make sure the kid's okay, And then once you know the kid is okay, then you can go back and start playing. She started to weep. She started to cry. She was so affected by it. So what do? You don't leave her alone in the corner. She got pulverized. She just got planted that, oh man, I did something terrible. I did something wrong. So I sat with her. We cried it out together. I didn't cry with her, but she cried. I held her, asked her what she felt. What are these feelings you're feeling? She felt sad. Great. How do we fix this right now? We'll talk about overcorrection next month. And then go take care of whatever it is, and now she can go back and she's going to play on her own. Well, she didn't. She went and sat with the kid and waited for the kid to be able to play again, and then they went off to play. But that's the mentality where you're modeling empathy in such a way that they recognize that this is the way that I need to act. She could have kept on going, no problem. Or what some parents will do, they'll glorify that by ignoring it. And so that's where the dangers come in. But empathy is a very, very good way to be able to get that going. The last one, which I think is really important before we practice, we focus more on the behavior than the character. Okay? So when a kid does something, right, what's one of the things we may want to say? What's wrong with you? Why did you do? Rather than draw it back to focus on the act itself. The kid's act is what the problem is, what they did. Kids, and this is not just my kids, all kids, especially in the years, like you go from about ages 3 to 7, will have a very black and white way of viewing the world. So if they do something wrong, they are bad. So that's what we're breaking. From the beginning, we have to teach that. No, we do bad things too. I do bad things. You do bad things. But it doesn't mean you're a bad person. We need to allow that to be something that we recognize. So shame is one of those things that we fundamentally think something's wrong with us. Well, if we push back against that from the beginning and say, no, there's not fundamentally something wrong with you. You just did something wrong. It can help interfere with the development of a shame cycle. Okay, so for this one, partner up or turn to your neighbor. You don't have to partner up necessarily, but turn to your neighbor. Say something nice about what you see for your neighbor. What do you see in your neighbor? Just say something nice. Say something nice to whoever's next to you. Say something nice. Maybe their shoes, what they're wearing. Good. So that's a good one for behavior. You've heard the piano, so that's behavior that you're touching. Good. Very good. So say something nice about what they look like. Something superficial. Right? Something superficial to them. How difficult is that? How hard is it to say something superficial to somebody?
Hard.
Is it?
Yeah. I don't like superficial stuff.
Okay, good. Okay, now say something much more deeper meaning, something you can't see. It's not superficial. How can you compliment them in a way that is something along their character? How do you compliment someone on their character? How does that look? Is that easier? Is that harder? What do you think? Is it harder, easier? What do you think? Character, rather than something superficial. Harder. Usually, it's more difficult to be able to focus on something internalized, something hidden, the characters of somebody. But in the moment that we are disciplining, in the moment that we're frustrated, we so quickly look to the character of our child rather than the superficial, right? We call this the fundamental attribution bias as a psychologist, where when you look to somebody else, you fundamentally believe their attributions, their characteristics are the reason why they've made the mistake, they've made the fault. Right? Very simple example I always use. You're driving, someone cuts you off. Wow, this guy's such self-entitled, thinking of only themselves, right? That's the mentality we say, because we attribute their characteristic as being the fault. But if you were in their car, they maybe just dropped something on the floor. They looked at, oh, my bad. Like it was a mistake that they made. No. But they did it. They're self-entitled. If you do it, right? Oh no! I got a phone call. I got distracted. I was looking at this. It was just the circumstances that I made them. Right? How do we do that with our kids? Pay attention to our kids. If we're looking at our kids and we immediately use that fundamental attribution, we look at them being fundamentally flawed as being the problem. It's so easy to slip into the cycle where we just let them loop in the self-worth deprecation that the kid will play in their head over and over again, as opposed to, now you just did something wrong. It's just the circumstances. You were trapped in this weird situation. You ended up lying. You're not a liar. You're not a liar. You're not innately this horrible person. You lied in that situation. We move on. Fix it. We fix it. We'll talk about overcorrection, like I said, next month. But will we move on from this and keep going? Good? Make sense? Okay. Rewards and punishments. I think this one's really important. What's a reward? Anyone that knows? What's a reward?
Here's an M&M you pooped in the potty.
What's a punishment? Use the poop in a potty.
You're going to hold it in.
Oh, wow. That's brutal. You pooped in the diaper, but I wanted you to poop in the potty, so... No M&M. There you go. Reward, punishment, right? So the way that it gets divided in psychology, the main way that it gets described, rewards or some sort of reinforcement is something that you're doing for a kid that you're wanting the behavior to increase. You did something that I want you to keep doing. Here is something, right? Punishment is you did something I don't want you to do. I want that behavior to decrease. So here is something to not do that as much, right? Then you have positive and negative, the way it gets divided. Positive, of course, you're adding something. Negative, you're taking something away. Lots of ways of describing that. Now, the effectiveness has been pretty clear. Positive reinforcement, rewarding good behavior is the most effective to get someone to do something faster and longer. Okay? Positive, here's something because you've done behavior I want you to do. I want you to keep doing it. Positive reinforcement is the best way of doing that. Punishments are very effective at getting someone to quickly do something, right? I mean, we're kids. I'm sure most of us grew up in families where response was quick from parent. You know, here's the spoon, here's the pot, and it's like whatever it was in the moment, you're not going to do that anymore. But what happens is with punishments, it gets weaker as time goes on. It's less effective. So what ends up happening, parents come into my room and say, I have taken away everything this kid owes. I have restricted everything this kid can do. Nothing works. Well, that's how it works, because the punishment doesn't work that way. The more you punish, the more your kid becomes indifferent. They don't care. It doesn't affect them as long as a positive reinforcement does. And that's why it's really important to be able to consider it. Now, too much obviously isn't good. So if you keep rewarding your kid over and over again, or the danger is you saturate their rewards. So let's say Garnet and I use Ferrero Rocher for potty training our kids. Best chocolate out there. Ferrero Rocher, they got a Ferrero Rocher if they went to the bathroom properly. But they've had Ferrero Rochers other times too. That oversaturation, a kid's not going to want to poop it. I get Ferrero Rochers whenever I want. I mean, I can just ask for it. And, huh? Oh, that's right. It was that bar. Yeah, I wanted Ferrero Rochers. I think I was eating the Ferrero Rochers.
The marzipan balls work like a charm.
They did, because we didn't give the...
They still expect the marzipan.
That's a different conversation. I'll talk about that soon. So the idea there is that we do too much of it. If it doesn't have a place for it, it can become problematic. Punishment works the same way. I've just talked about that. They become oversaturated with punishment. They don't care as much. Too little, it creates that whole other problem of where we can't really have a person that's doing whatever they want to do. They kind of fly off the deep end. They're not really reacting to whatever's going on. So too little also is problematic, especially for reward. But the punishment, ironically, too little punishment sometimes works. You can replace a majority of our punishments with rewards and still get a functioning child that is paying attention, is empathetic, and is learning what to do and how to behavior.
Is it not realistic to teach them to be innately motivated? So, like, for example, the M&M for going potty, and then they're fully potty trained, but then they want an M&M like every single time.
Right.
Using the bathroom.
Correct.
Or like for behavior, like for good behavior, they expect the reward to keep happening. They
Yes.
don't want to be kind to just be kind. They want to be kind to get the...
Right. So here's the key, and there's a perfect segue. What is an innate learned behavior that your kid has? What do you think? What's innate? Just name one.
Doing like something after you say no.
That's not learned? Yeah, that could be learned. Kid can learn that. What is something that your kid just knows how to do right out of the womb?
Cry.
Cry. Good. Eat. Very good. Yeah. What else? What else does the kid just know? Bowel movement. Pee. That's bowel movement. Breathing. Blinking. You don't teach those things, right? You don't, the parents? Do you teach them how to? This is the way you keep your eyes moist. Blink. No, you don't teach these things. There's innate pieces of behavior your kid just knows how to do, you don't teach. What is not an innate behavior? Name any. Potty train. Yeah, we just talked about that earlier. What else? What else do you have to teach your kid?
Say I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're not going to just know. Oh, I see. When I hurt someone, I have to say sorry because I just know that. No, it's not going to come in naturally.
Yelling.
Huh?
Yelling.
Yelling is definitely learned. Uh-huh. They pick up 100%. Yep. What was it? Taking turns. You're not going to learn that naturally. Sharing.
Yeah, that's not.
Behavior is taught. And the way you teach it is doing this in some capacity. There's nothing wrong with your kid expecting something for doing what they're supposed to do. Parents, that's one of the other things parents come in and it's like, I don't want to reward my kid for doing what they're already responsible for doing. Okay, yes, but there's a reason we have to teach them. Yeah.
But there is at some point where, like, that has to be true.
Correct.
I mean, fine, she's 5. She still wants some kind of reward.
Right.
Because she can get it. Because, was potty training right after her.
Right. So we have an issue there, yeah. Like, what about mine? It's like, I go all the time. Yeah, exactly.
But at some point, they have to do it on their own.
Yes.
And we have to wean back on that reward system.
Correct.
And how do we take it away without saying they're doing something wrong?
Good. Very good question. So what we call that in the field of rewards is thinning, where the first best way to do this is to go from a continuous reward schedule to an intermittent one. Okay? Now, we talked about motivation. If you remember, go back to my January talk. If you don't remember, real quickly, let me explain it. The best, most reinforcement schedule is intermittent, where it doesn't go away. What's an intermittent reinforcement schedule? Think of the casino, the lottery, or the slot machines. You set the slot machines, people can sit there for hours. They have a mind. This is how this machine works. No, it doesn't. You're just a goober that's pressing something that's a 0.003% chance to be able to get a reward. But you think the next one's going to hit. Oh, that's intermittent. That's why it's so addicting. It's so addicting to be able to sit there and just like, this one's going to be. What were you saying?
Midway games.
Yes.
Fairs and stuff like that.
Yes, 100%.
I got 2 bottles down. I can get that one last one.
I can do it.
I can do it this time.
Another one.
$10.
Yes. So the idea there is what you're teaching a kid is by, yes, we're going to do it every single time. Here's your M&M. Here's your marzipan ball. Here's your Ferrero Rocher. Every single time. Every single time. And then one day, good job. That's it. They get a good job. It's like, whoa, what's going on? And what the kid's going to go through is a little bit of annoyance, a little bit of frustration, but in their mind, it's like, okay, next one I'll do it. I'll get one. And then maybe you do give it. And then 2 times goes by and you don't give it. 6 times goes by and you don't give it. And then slowly, the kid is just doing the behavior and that reward has been pulled away completely. Every kid's different, right? Idiosyncratic. Think back to the first one. So every kid has a different phrase. Every situation is different. If your kid is growing up at the age of 4 and seeing their sister get something, yeah, you better give it to their sister too. It's fair to be able to do it to both, but then both also will be like, the thinning has to happen in some capacity. So there's ways to be able to do it, which is why it's really important to be creative with this. Just take advantage of the opportunities and thought process of how can I do this in such a way that everything will be involved. I'm thinking of what my kid enjoys, you're thinking back to the highly desirable piece, but I'm doing it in such a way that I can be able to pull away slowly, and hopefully they're not 15 and they're expecting an M&M for pooping in a potty. Ideally, you as the parent is responsible for that. You're teaching a behavior. They're responsible for that. It's okay for them to be rewarded at the beginning while they're learning. That's the goal, yeah.
At school we do the copying good.
Incha? Oh, yes, good.
Copying good.
Good.
I like that because, when they do something good, sometimes they come to tell me.
Yep.
Oh, I did
Yes. Good.
I want to catch you.
Yes. Good. Yeah.
And that's when you get the reward.
Yes.
That means not every time, but
Yep.
when I say it.
Very good.
When I see that.
That's an intermittent reward schedule where, is my teacher looking? Should I do it now? You can't think about that every single second of your life. But what you end up doing, you end up with a decision, and you do think about it. It's like, well, let me be good because maybe the teacher's looking. And so that's a very effective way of teaching kids, like, you be good all the time. And because sometimes they're going to want to not be good, and the teacher was looking like, oh, I missed the chance. That's okay. That's good. Don't give them something. Don't break the boundary. We'll talk about boundaries next month. But the idea here is you're teaching a kid, this is connected to this, and slowly you're taking it away. So the creative part for this one, it comes when you're trying to get rid of bad behavior. Okay? If you're trying to get rid of bad behavior, ultimately, you start to think, how can I reward my kid? So you have to think about it from the opposite perspective. Okay, there's bad behavior they're doing. I don't want them to do that. What do I want them to do instead? And that's the behavior we're doing because it ultimately supersedes that. I have multiple kids, screen time is out of control. From almost always the first question I ask parents, and the parent is like, they have no limits. They just kind of go on it whenever they want to, and then they go to sleep at 11 o'clock, and they've been on the entire time. And I was like, how do you allow that to happen? Because parents are exhausted. That's how that happens. And you'll end up being in that way because you just don't really think about it. So there's important ways to be able to structure a kid's understanding of what they're supposed to do, and rewarding is ultimately the best way to get that going, rather than punishing. So think about that opposite way of doing it. Okay? Good? Any questions? Any thoughts? Let me just do this quickly because we're almost out of time. Last one, chores. So this comes very much alongside with that. Chores are very effective in being able to teach a kid what to do. No kid is too young or too fill in the blank to be able to start with chores. You can get, if a kid can walk and they can be able to hold something, they can do chores, right? You can get a kid to be like, we took off your clothes, even a 2-year-old. You took off your clothes, here they are, take them to the hamper. Teach them that function. You can start as early as you want. Garna and I have gotten pails and brooms. They make a bigger mess than what it is. But to get that mentality of practicing and doing it with the dad and the mom, it's very effective to be able to get that going. Yeah.
Just one of the things that I've done with Yuki that I've enjoyed, I want to share.
Great.
Want to do it. Out of cardboard, I made her the Sheldon shirt folding thing. And Yuki has been folding her clothes since Louisiana. It's been 2 years.
Yeah.
She'll do it.
Age of 3.
Yeah, so, it's not perfect, but she folds her clothes because they're the size of the cardboard Sheldon thing that I made for her.
Yep.
She's already learned
She was doing it at 2 years old.
Yep.
So, she doesn't do it all the time. It's not like boot camp or anything, but like sometimes when I'm doing laundry, she thinks of it as a positive activity her and I used to do.
Yeah.
So she'll be like, hey, Mama, you're doing laundry. Can I come fold laundry with you?
That's
yes.
it. That's it. That's it. Yes, a lot of the times there's going to be moments. I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to save it for that. So this can be done excessively. If you do it too much, it can turn into a punishment. I mean, it can be like nobody wants to do chores. I mean, that's not realistically. We don't want to do chores, but the idea is that we will learn the value of it. So there's ways to kind of spoon feed and slowly introduce it to the kids so that they can be able to better understand.
How do we train our husbands to do it?
Jury's out on that one. Oh man, that's a harder description. Yeah, that's a whole different conversation. The danger on the other side is a kid becomes oblivious to just basic function within the house. There was one kid I was working with. This kid, he was in I think every class he took was an AP class from sophomore year. Like he's smart, he's very intelligent, computer programmer in high school. He has all these plans to do all this stuff, great stuff. Parents come in and tell me the frustrations that they have. He has a temper. And then the one thing the mom was saying, he's like, he does his own laundry. I'm like, oh, that's good, that's great. She's like, not really. He will go in, and if clothes are in the wash, so they're wet, he takes them out and throws them on the floor, and then puts his in, and just thinks that everything's okay. And so I asked him about this, and he just completely oblivious. He's like, yeah. I mean, what do you mean, yeah? They're washed, they're wet. Like, why would you put them on the floor? He's like it didn't click for him. It took moments, it took a few sessions of us talking about certain aspects of what can you do at home how can we adjust this a little bit to be like, take it and maybe put it in the dryer? Like, why don't you just take a next step? Or just leave it on the washer for a second, just like somewhere. I mean, that's a mess too, but the idea there is to make him less oblivious to what's going on. But again, how are they going to learn that? That's where parenting moments come in. So let's end with this. This is the most important thing I think we can go away with this. Parenting moments are pretty much always. There's always a parenting moment. And the reason I say that is because, yes, there's teachable moments. There's like, here's where I can teach my kid something. But there's so many opportunities for us as parents to come alongside our kid and edify their behavior. To affirm that this is exactly what you wanted to do. Good job. That's a parenting moment. So there's so many they can do. However, as parents, our stamina is limited. Our ability to be able to slow things down and sit with our kid it dwindles as the day goes on. We get exhausted. So picking and choosing the parenting moments is really important. But this is a really easy one to be able to get going, where you sit with your kid, you teach them a specific thing that they need to do, whatever the moment is, whatever the situation is. If they've generalized the situation to something else, you've taught them to dust something here, they start dusting something somewhere else. Take that moment and just sit with them and be like, good job. I really appreciate what they did. And they could have done a terrible job. But the idea is you're affirming the ability for the kid to think, because they're going to grow up. They're going to learn eventually. The skills are going to come in, the hand-eye coordination, the dexterity, all that will come in. It'll become something that's more functional. They can be able to actually help around the house. But ultimately, the moments that we can be able to chime in on the kid are plentiful. So taking that and putting it out of our day is really important. Yeah.
About this, I'm thinking about what I need to work on.
Yeah.
So like when Yuffie helps me to do the chores, let's say it's the sweeping, she does a terrible job. Or she's doing the dishes, she's doing a terrible job.
Yeah, man, she's water everywhere.
She does laundry wrong. I don't interfere. But my concern is like especially when it's dishes, I'm like I can get twitchy.
Yeah.
And I want to. And I have done it where I've taken it away from her and I've cleaned it the way it's supposed to be cleaned, hoping it's modeling. But like, part of me is wondering, like, does that feel like overcorrection? A little bit, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, let me do this more right for you.
Right.
I don't think I do it excessively, but over time I could see, because it's cleanliness, like it needs to be done right. You can't just.
You're not going to eat on
dirt. Good job. Here's the dish with the tomato sauce. And,
right. Correct.
How do you handle like the chore aspect of it when something does need to be done well, not just done?
Yeah. No.
Like it's not her bed that she's doing where it's like, okay, that doesn't look like you did anything.
Right.
It's fine.
Right. Yeah. It's not going to impact anyone's sanitation or their health.
Well-being.
Correct. Yes. No. Definitely. I think the way that I tell that to parents is there's an age difference, and that's where there's a developmental difference too. It is totally fine to overcorrect a kid, especially in moments where you're doing your best you're recognizing that I am modeling this for the kid, and eventually you'll get it. The idea there will be going back to that shame thing. It doesn't sound like you're doing that at all, where you're not shaming the kid like, oh man, you stink at this. What's wrong with you? You're not doing that, but you're just reminding, like, she does stink at it. This is really important we do it correctly. Like that reminder, that emphasis that we're placing on it, like good, but there's a little bit more time you need to be able to get this correctly done. I think let me show you how it is, and then I can imagine already Yuffie, she'd be like, okay, checks out and walks away. Like, so it's totally fine if it happens.
She's done, and I'm like, did I just do my
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's totally fine. In the moment, it could be deflating, but again, we keep doing it, the parenting moments always come up. So there's always an opportunity to reintroduce it at a time where it could just click better for the kid. I think that's the most important thing. There's going to be a time when it clicks. Like if you try to get a 2-year-old to clean dishes, it's not going to work. A 6-year-old, even that might not work. They might not have the dexterity to be able to do this, do that with the wish and recognize that, oh, everything's clean. So there's ways to be able to implement that. It just takes time to be able to get that done properly, and that's okay to have those moments over and over and over again. I assure you, the one time you take it away and don't do it, she's not going to forever never clean a dish again. Like it's not enough. That's the other piece to keep in mind. and we'll end with this. If you miss a parenting moment, it's not the end of the world. It never is. The times it's the end of the world is if it's continued behavior for years. Even that, I've had therapy clients come in at the age of 13. It's more work. There's more resistance. There's more opportunities of pushing back against what's going on. But there's been 13 years of ongoing pressure from the parent in a certain way of acting, and we can still reverse that. There can still be healing in some capacity. It's almost never over. It's almost never too late. And I want to leave a little bit of room, like let's be advantaged. But you miss one or two, it's fine. Like the Winnicott, one of my favorite psychologists, described the parent as being good enough. That should be our goal. Our goal should be just good enough to whatever the kid needs, because there's going to be those moments where I can slow things down tremendously. And so it just happened this morning. I was preparing lunch for the kids, and it was late. I'm trying to get them to school, and they're standing like statues in the kitchen. It's like they're just standing there, like they're doing nothing. It's the funniest thing. And I ran into them twice as I'm walking back and forth. Effie one way, Yuffie a different direction. So I have to and I'm like, out of the kitchen if you're not helping me. Like this is enough. Like we're gonna get. That was a parenting moment I missed, because I could have taken advantage of that. We could have slowed things down. I didn't have time in that moment to do it. I've done it before, where I can sit down with them. Effina, can you grab this from the fridge? Yuffie, can you make she makes sandwiches. Yuffie, can you make the sandwiches for Effina and you? And I'll cut them. I mean, we have that opportunity. Just because I miss one is not the end of the world. It doesn't make you a terrible parent at all, ever. We are trying our best to be good enough, and a lot of times you miss one opportunity, those will be many more opportunities you can have. So don't beat yourself up, right? Don't get yourself into a shame cycle that I'm not doing enough. Good?
So encouraging. Thank you.
Any questions? Any comments? Yeah.
Okay. Just because you're talking about practice and practicality.
Yeah.
We're all parents. We've all done it. Okay. Our kids have a funny way of driving us to the levels of rage.
Oh, yeah.
No human has ever brought us to.
Yes.
Down to your knees, praying to God that, oh my gosh, I have to keep this child safe.
Yes.
You know. So like for example, there's those mornings where you're like, okay, you got up, the kids, you got made their lunches, you dressed them up, and it's time to go.
Yeah.
Okay, and you're already like 2 minutes late to school. And then your kid already takes off their clothes. You like put on your shoes. The other one's putting on their shoes. The other one is running around naked in the house. And
Sure.
like, like it just escalates really quickly. We've all had those days. And then,
Yes. The twitching starts. I'm about to lose it.
is gone.
Yes.
And then you yell at them. And
Yes.
obviously, like any parent who's worth anything, we've yelled and we felt horrible for it.
Yep.
We kick ourselves in the butt for it all the time. Not to say like to normalize like when we get angry or when we lose our cool, because they have no idea the importance of trying to go somewhere, let's say on time.
Yeah.
And they have no idea how they have enraged you.
Yeah. I have a meeting I have to drop you off so I can make it to a meeting. Ian Cinch, what do they know? That's like a click.
Church on Sunday. Ready to leave,
Right.
And you lose your cool. What is the advice or the practicality that you can give your parents? Those are not the ones who do it all the time.
Right.
So obviously there's times where it's just totally fine. We can control ourselves, and then there are those days where it's like this. They've been pushing my buttons for 4 days straight.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
What is the advice or the practicality that you can give the parents when they lose their cool?
Yes. So keeping that in mind, the good enough is the goal always. We'll talk about this in the second half of modeling. The kid should learn what it looks like when you lose your cool. Your kid's going to lose their cool. The kid's going to lose their cool. They're going to do it as well. So how do I now, what we call it in the field is overcorrection. How do I overcorrect this experience that I've had, I've lost my cool, and I handle. And the best way to learn that is to watch what your parent does. How does your parent? Oh, my parent. Oh man, mom's losing it. Like the kids will talk to each other, siblings will tell each other, we've pushed them too far. Run, like we got to get away, whatever it is. But if the kid then sees the follow-up of the parent coming alongside the kids, hey, I lost it this morning. I yelled at you for a long time. I'm sorry that I yelled at you. That was not what I wanted to do. So learning that overcorrection from a parent is such an effective way to be able to fix it. Because there's no parent that's ever going to keep their cool. Like, it's not going to happen. It's not, especially now, especially if you're outnumbered by your kids. Like, it is not going to happen where one parent is taking care of two. It's over. Like, the odds are against you. So we have to not beat ourselves up. We're trying to be good enough. If we make a mistake, we call it in therapy rupture. If there's a rupture in that relationship where I just unload on my kid and then they get upset and we get upset and it just escalates one after another, then how do we teach my kid to respond and resolve that in the future? Because that's helpful adult skills. So I think that becomes an important goal. So we're putting those two things together, but we'll talk about overcorrection in the next workshop. Any other comments? Any other questions? Yeah.
I mean, they should know that parents lose their cool because eventually the teachers will lose their cool, and when they grow up, their boss will lose their cool if they don't behave.
If they don't learn any better, that's true.
Need to do.
Yeah.
So it will all, it goes all the way there.
Yes, but that's still learned. It's a learned behavior. So there's a way to be able to get that implemented, and that's why the reward system is always better. If you do what you're expected to do, I'm going to reward you. Eventually, I'm not going to reward you, but you're not going to know that. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do it in a way that you're not going to recognize and understand that, because we're teaching you to behave in a proper way. This is the way you behave in society. So I know as parents, and there's going to be those kids, it's like, I've been training my kid for years. I've been doing the same thing for years, but they don't listen. It's okay. We just got to keep doing it, because that's the way you can teach them, and that's the way it can make sense ultimately. They should know, but that's okay if they don't. Yeah.
At what age does it start clicking?
25.
20 years?
Technically, the time that the brain develops fully, and the last thing to develop is your executive functioning, which is in the frontal cortex, the prefrontal cortex. So that ability to be patient, and the ability to empathize, and the ability to keep cautious with the overdiagnosing. This is what kids do. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about boundaries. Kids are wired to do this because they don't know what else to do. This is how they function. So that's why we're slowly teaching them. And now I don't tell them to keep your feet down, but instead I'm like, here's what we're going to. Let's sit down and play a board game. He's not upside down when we're playing a board game. He sits perfectly. He actually reads the instructions. He tells me, oh, you're doing it wrong. And he tells me, like, you're supposed to get 4 cards, not 3. I was like, you're right. Thank you for teaching me. So there's ways. You don't criticize. You don't break it down. You don't stop him. I let him take my seat every single time. And then we are able to correct that behavior by saying, this is what we're going to do instead. You're replacing the bad behavior. It's not bad, but it's the behavior you don't want with behavior you want him to do. So it works ultimately in lots of different ways. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course. We'll continue next month. Sorry, we went way over. But thank you for being patient. Thanks for sticking around. And then, like I said, we'll continue the last 6 next month. And there won't be as much of an introduction, so we'll get through all 6. And hopefully it's helpful. Share it with other parents that you come across. And any other questions, I love to talk about it all the time. So feel free to ask me, text me, call me. So